is it about finding purpose, or what are the basic building blocks for living that fulfilling life? I think you said something about uh, purpose, identity, and connection. Can
Connections.
you
Yeah.
explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. So, purpose, identity, connections, this idea that understanding what drives you, who you are, and then using those things to build relationships, connections, and community with other people is really what I think happiness is, right? And we can use different terms, right? Some people say happiness. You can talk about um, quality of life. Some people say, self actualization. We all have these different terms for whatever we call this contentedness, right? And so when it all comes down to it, I think contentedness or happiness really has two main components, right? One is meaning and the other is purpose. Meaning is about how we cognitively think about our past. It's the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves and what we've gone through. There can be no happiness if you look at your past and see yourself as a victim, right? If you see the past as bad and all these bad things happened to me, and because these bad things happened to me, I never was able to be the person I wanted to be. If that's your outlook, if that's the way you interpret your past, if that's the meaning you find, you're not going to be a particularly happy person. On the other hand, if the story you tell yourself is, I went through all these really challenging things and I came out of them, and although I wouldn't want to go through them again, I became a better person who learned things and who is better today than they were yesterday because of all these difficult things, then you're really telling yourself the hero story. And so when you understand meaning or your past, then it's much easier to approach your present and your future. And your present and your future are very purpose oriented, not meaning oriented, purpose oriented, and they're very action oriented. And so when I talk about purpose, identity, and connections, what we're really talking about is how in the present and the future you're going to build that life you want to build. And so you can't do that if you don't know what drives you, what excites you, what you're passionate about. That's purpose. You can't do that if you don't know who you are, right? So if I don't fundamentally know who I am or what's important to me, it's going to be really hard to find these anchors to build purpose around. And you can't do that unless you have connections. And what I love to say is connections and community are actually the award at the end of the game. They're the gold at the end of the rainbow. So as opposed to putting all your time worrying about building and community and connections, I actually tell people really work on meaning and purpose includes identity. If you really work on building a sense of purpose and identity into your life, you will naturally, as a side effect, create connections with other people and build community. When you are intentionally doing things that you're passionate about, other people see you and you join groups and you meet people and you develop teacher student relationships or mentor mentee relationships, and there's a lot of reciprocality and give and take, and you build these communities based on people seeing you doing things that light you up. And so community and connection is winning the game. It's actually the end point, and it's a happy side effect. And it's not just me who kind of says this. If you look at the data, there's been plenty of data. When you talk about does money bring happiness, there's actually been plenty of longitudinal data about what makes people happy. In fact, the Harvard Men's Study, I think, has studied this group of men starting in the 1920s, and just every year or two interviewed them, interviewed the people they loved. They came to all sorts of conclusions. And one of the biggest conclusions they came to is it wasn't really money that brought people happiness. It wasn't achievements. It wasn't all those other things we think it is. It was the close relationships, the connections in the community you form. And so that's how I think it works. If we look at this kind of framework of what happiness is, it's meaning and purpose. Meaning is your past, purpose is your present, which obviously is wrapped up in identity. And the whole idea behind purpose and identity is eventually you win the game by building communities and having connections with other people. I think that's what it's all about.